Hey everyone, Tony D with a hot take on the end of the CHAZ. Yes, the CHAZ, the chop, Little Wokeistan, as I sometimes call it, seems to be over. Yes, the mayor announced it was going to close, and it seems like some of the protesters took my advice and closed the CHAZ. Only problem is they don't have any real leaders in the CHAZ, CHOP, Antifa, BLM, Cluster F. They sort of vote on things and sort of not. I don't know if Raz Simone, signed off on this, but apparently someone put out a press release, which was very professional, which leads me to believe it's probably from the Democratic Party or an agent in the Democratic Party trying to put a nice, happy spin on this whole thing. Or maybe it's just a big cover-up so they could just send in the cops to bust heads and cover the whole thing up. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if the mayor, using her media allies, sent in the cops to really crack down on these kids and then said to the media, well, it was a peaceful ending to the entire affair. Because, while these riots were going on, not only in Seattle but nationwide, the news outlets seemed to think they were very peaceful. Oh, they peacefully tore down a statue and set it on fire. They peacefully torched a car and peacefully threw bricks through a window. That's our media today. But the CHAZ, it just fell apart as it was wont to do. These people had no idea what they were doing. They're a bunch of college students who are protesting and demand to be heard. And then when you go, okay, what? They go, we have no plan. Say what you want about the hippies. They would at least do interviews. I mean, most of their interviews were just nonsense. Like, yeah, hey man, it's a far out trip. You should come down here and join us and smoke a J and chill out, man. It's far out. I mean, that was the hippies. They were annoying, but at least they were kind of friendly and talkative. The Antifa BLM movement, not friendly at all, not talkative at all. Because when you talk to them, they demand nothing but obedience. Nothing but obedience. So the latest demand from BLM is give us what we want or we'll burn the entire system down. Good luck with that. I think you just made a whole lot of people go, oh, I'm out. I'm out of BLM. I'm not supporting BLM. In fact, I retweeted, go to my Twitter, by the way. I say all sorts of snarky things if you want to get on the Twitter. If you don't have a Twitter account, do yourself a favor. Don't make a Twitter account just for me. I'm sure I'll be banned during the great purge that is no doubt coming very soon. But if you happen to be on Twitter and you find me, I put out a tweet that said something like, I quoted the BLM leader who said this, words to that effect, and I said, can someone who supports BLM defend this quote? No takers. No takers. It's an indefensible quote. I mean, he's basically saying we're going to destroy your country unless you give us what we want. I mean, he's basically putting a gun to your head, essentially. He's using the mob as the gun. And unfortunately, that's not a good look. That's not a good look. That creates enemies. You're actually creating enemies. Not for black people, but for BLM, but for Antifa. I mean, Antifa is already your enemy, but BLM is also apparently sucked into the Marxist vortex, or whatever you want to call it, and they're doing the same kind of nonsense. They want to destroy everything. This is their actual plan. Their plan is to tear down the state, to tear down the traditional family, tear down religion, to tear down everything. This is a postmodernist Marxist philosophy. You tear it all down, and then you rebuild from the rubble. And they think they're going to be in charge of the rubble. So they don't care that it's nothing but rubble to rule over as long as they get to rule over it. You see how that works? It's nonsense. It's especially nonsense in America because, well, there are billionaires. And I seriously doubt any of them are going to allow you to reduce their customer base to living in squalor where they're unable to pay for their wonderful products. So good luck with that. But you'll do a lot of damage on the way, and I'm sure your Marxist allies in the media and in academia will write glowing praise of this time, and oh, how you valiantly fought the corporatist, and you valiantly fought the fascist, and oh, the horrible Republicans who were in power, but they were just too strong. Oh. No, it's because you are very weak. Part of the problem with leftist ideology in general is their leadership ideals, right? They have no leader, but they do have leaders. So when you're conceptually aligned with the idea of no leaders, what you get are the most willful people in charge. People just start listening to the noisiest people. And it's usually frustrated people go, all right, you go on that street, you go protest over there, you go protest over there. And just people naturally fall into that role if they're willful. And pretty soon, in these sorts of organizations, they gain more power because by default, it's like a vacuum of leadership that people fill. And then by default, they become the leader and therefore become more powerful. Maybe they get a little money. Maybe they get a little prestige. Maybe people buy them drinks at the bar after the protest. And it's all great. Maybe they get to put their name on a flyer or choose the font for their Antifa literature or whatever. All these little rewards start adding up, and you start to think, I'm really good at this. I'm a pretty good leader. But then they get full of themselves, and you end up with a guy like Raz Simone, who in my view is just sort of falling into it because he happens to have a gun and he's not afraid to sort of wear it and swing it around. But in the end, part of the announcement of the CHAZ CHOP ending is that some people may decide to stick it out, but they're no longer going to be supporting them. Oh, really? Interesting, because I thought you were all for everybody doing for whatever they wanted. And now you're not going to support these poor people? Now because they don't support your ideology, you're just going to cut them loose and say, hey, you're on your own, a-holes. Good, happy living on the street or getting your head kicked in by a cop, I guess. Yeah, really nice. Really nice way to abandon all those mentally ill people who joined your cause. But yeah, it was inevitable it was going to end like this, or it was going to end with cops coming in and tearing everything down. And that's probably what you're going to see down the road. Probably online from some YouTuber who's covering this will actually show you, maybe a week from now when the cops actually are back and they actually have control of the place and they quietly dismantle the tents in the park. They just go in there and start dismantling the tents. Maybe they arrest a few people and the rest are all away or whatever. And they just throw the tents out. They did it in Los Angeles. There was a guy who was building little shacks. They were like little tool sheds for the homeless, just so they could have a place to put their stuff. And I think he had like a phone recharger in there. It wasn't like a bathroom or anything. It was just like a place to sleep, essentially. It was essentially little woodsheds that they could live in. And then the city decided they were illegal for some reason and just started tearing them down and taking them away and, basically throwing those poor homeless people back onto the street, even after, being all lefty and Democrat. And, we're going to save the homeless, but first let us kick them out of these sheds that are very unsafe because it'd be better if they just lived on the flea-infested streets of Los Angeles or the rat-infested streets of Los Angeles until we come up with a plan. That's what government does. It breaks your legs and then hands you a crutch and says, see how I help you? So these protesters, or some of them anyway, are learning an important lesson. The Democratic agents or allies or political hacks that walked among Black Lives Matter and I'm sure starting to work for the Democratic Party, they don't care. They just got paid. They got paid to jack this whole thing up so it could be national news and so they could try to lure Trump into sending in the National Guard and to doing something mean that they could use for a soundbite. They're already using the clips of Trump not defending the Andrew Jackson statue, defending the White House. Yeah, as if he should have invited those violent protesters into the White House for tea. Oh, why don't you come in for tea? Smash the state. Oh, would you like sugar? Smash the state, you fascist. I mean, what do people think they're going to get out of that footage? Half the footage they used in one of the commercials I saw, fireworks were going off, and they tried to blame that on other people other than Antifa. Antifa, which has a long history of bringing fireworks to these protests just to cause chaos and noise, and, you know, oh, but it's the cops. It's the cops giving people fireworks. It's the cops handing out fireworks. Yeah, sure. Sure they are. Look, we know your tactics, Antifa. It's to cause chaos. You leave bricks around. You leave bottles of gasoline around. I'm sure you left fireworks around. You just pass them out and say, hey, you want to play with some fireworks? I mean, just a few minutes ago, I watched a kind of a scary video, The Streets of New York, it was titled. And it was a bunch of kids with fireworks in New York somewhere. And they just start shooting them at some kid who's in a car. Now, the kid shooting the fireworks happen to all be black, and the kid in the car is white. And he eventually jumps out of the car because I guess the fireworks are going off and they're loud. And then he has no shirt on, and they just keep throwing fireworks at him. And then they put a trash can over his head. It kind of looked like a fun time, quote unquote. Maybe it was fun taken too far, but it was kind of hard to tell. But still, this is New York. This isn't like, the middle of nowhere where, you can kind of set off fireworks. People's houses were on either side of the street. It only takes one stray firework, and they were just shooting them everywhere to land inside a house and start a fire. So, I mean, I'm a big proponent of fireworks. I like explosions, but in the city of New York, I can understand why fireworks are probably illegal. I mean, they're illegal in the whole state of New Jersey, even though, you can hear them almost all summer. But, in very busy areas, I could understand why, fireworks should be illegal. But, that's de Blasio's New York, right? Everybody gets to do what they want as long as you pretend like you're protesting. And that's why you get a CHAZ. There's a CHAZ in, they're trying to start a CHAZ in other places now. In Portland, there's one apparently. They're trying to start one in Washington again, and I forget the other city. But, they're not working because they're bait to lure Trump in, and all they've done is they've lured other governors in to make them do what they're required to do, which is protect their citizens from harm and their businesses and their houses and their cars and whatever else is out there. So we'll get into that a little more in the next video.